Hey guys, get ready with me while I tell you how I unintentionally broke up a marriage in Ibiza. So me and my family went on holiday to Ibiza this year, about 4 months ago. And I'm not even gonna hide his name. His name was Sandro. So this holiday was before my birthday. So I was 14. I don't want to get banned, but yeah. So Sandro was a bartender along with other bartenders, and you know when you just have like a little crush, like obviously nothing's gonna happen, just like a little crush. So I was sat down on this table and he gave me a note with his Instagram on. At the end of this video I'll put up the photo, because I took a photo of his Instagram, like the note, but I'm gonna cover his Instagram out. Okay, so I added his Instagram and he didn't accept it. So then he made a literal account on Instagram, like user1234. But I didn't question it. I did think it was like weird, but I didn't question it. So the night came, it was about 10 PM. I was with my friends called Max and Sky and my brother. And I asked him, how old are you? He said he was 19. I was like, okay, not that bad. Obviously that is bad, but like it's not as bad as what I thought he was. But considering he didn't look 19, I did ask his bartender friends how old he was, and they all said he was 19. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I told him I was 14 at the time, and he said, oh, 14 is our age of consent, So he was Spanish, and he was like teaching me really inappropriate words and saying there were different words. I was like, so a couple of days go by and I'm here for 2 weeks, by the way. So he asks me to meet him at night, and I'm like, I'm not going to meet you by myself. I'll meet you with my friends. And he was like, oh no, meet me by yourself. I was like, no, not happening. So he came and found me with my friends. I was like, what are you doing? But then he went back to his wife and his kid, by the way, his 3-year-old little girl. I was like, but I didn't know he had a wife or a kid at this point. Like, I didn't know until the very end, and we'll come to that. So the days go by, we're just literally flirting, like nothing actually has happened or anything, like we haven't met up, we're just like flirting, like just like casual flirting, like yeah. And then in the day he messaged me on Instagram saying like what his work times was. Like I think he started work at 9, and in Spain they have this thing where they have like a long break, and I think he had a break from 1 till 8 or 9. So a couple of days in, I know where he works, because he works in different places, because there's like 4 bars I think. So I just go meet him at his bars and we just talk, like nothing weird, we just literally just talk about random stuff. But then he started like flirting, like weird flirting. I was telling him like, you do know like I am 14, like I am a minor. And he's stuck by the fact that consent age was 14 and I was not going to have with this bartender. So one of the nights he didn't turn up to work, so I asked one of his bartender friends like, where is Sandro? And he was like, oh, he's with his wife. And I thought he was like messing about, because like he told me he doesn't have a girlfriend, wife or kid, like nothing like that. So I asked Sandro, I messaged him saying like, do you have a girlfriend? And he replied at like 2 in the morning saying like, no I don't. Who told you that? And I was like, oh, your bartender friend did. And he was like, oh, don't believe him, he's lying, he's got a wife, like just don't believe him. I was like, okay, whatever you say, because like I'm obviously going to trust him more, because the other guy was laughing while he was saying it, so I just kind of like trusted Sandra more. So me and my friends were hanging out at about midnight, and he came up to me and my best friend Sky and Jaden and Max, and he was wearing skinny jeans. I was like, what are you wearing? But anyway, he came to us after he went from this other hotel, and we were like, why is he here? And he was like, oh, I'm just signing out from work. So he was like, guys, wait here for me, like we'll hang out. And I was like, okay, we'll wait here. It comes like an hour. We were like, we're going back home, or to our hotel rooms. So it comes the next day, obviously because I've got a child wristband, I can't get alcohol, but he gave us alcohol. So he was like our little, I don't know, just he gave us alcohol, me and all my friends. But he would tell his friends like really inappropriate stuff that he wanted to do to me. and his friends would tell me on Google Translator, because we just use Google Translator and everything to like talk, and I was like, what the hell? And my brother found out. Okay, so a couple of days went by and I was saying goodbye to my gay best friend Jaden, and me and Sky and Max were all there together. Actually, I don't think Max was there, and my brother. And this lady came up to me saying, do you know Sandro, on Google Translator, because obviously they're Spanish and I'm English. And I said, yeah, why? And she was like, follow me. I was like, okay, can my friends come in? She was like, no, just you. And I was like, my friends come in. So me and this lady went and sat down on this bench, and we was like Google Translate and everything. And I told her everything that I know and what he said, because if this is his girlfriend, I'm going to tell her. Because I'm not the type of girl to keep a secret for a man that I don't know, and someone I'm not with, and I don't trust. So she says, how old are you? And I say, I'm 14. And she like actually stands up and like starts crying. I'm like, what's wrong? And she goes, he is 29. We're all like, what the actual hell has just been said? She was like, I've been dating him for 3 years on Google Translate. And she was like actually having like a panic attack and crying. I was like comforting her, obviously. And I was just telling her everything I know and like everything she needs to know. And she was like, please like tell me what he says to you. So they broke up. They were married they broke up, but they didn't divorce yet. So I asked him the next day, no, like I told him, you were lying the whole time, like you had a girlfriend, you have a child. He has a 3-year-old little girl. I had to go at him. I was like, you literally have a child. He walked off with like his little cups. I was like, I told his friends, like they lied to me as well. They said he was 19, he was 29. He was literally double my age. But that does not stop him that I was 14 and he knew I knew. So he was still trying to flirt with me. So I was just telling his girlfriend everything. So she came up to me every opportunity she got, and it was so embarrassing because sometimes my parents were there and I'd have to like ignore her, because obviously I don't want my parents knowing that there's a pedo on site, because my dad will go ballistic.
Girl, she just wanna have fun too. They say you ain't wifey type, but I don't care, I want you. She like to do drugs too. She in love with but I like that girl so much I wish I never met her.
So they ended up divorcing, and I felt so bad, like, but he has done this to many other girls. Like his wife told me that he'd done this to a German girl last week, and then he got caught having in their hotel room, because they live in the hotel because they work there, like last year. And they've all been underage, by the way. But this girl messages me every other day, like asking if we spoke. And I'm like, no, I blocked him. Like, I have not spoke to this boy since holiday. But honestly, my heart is out to this girl because she's so lovely and she's so gorgeous. And I feel so bad because she's literally got a whole child. And she thought that he loved her. But in fact, he's just a... Anyway, this is the makeup. And thank you so much for watching. And let me know if you want another story time. Anything.
Story time, how I got arrested at 11 years old. So I don't really share this story a lot, only to like people I know, but someone asked for a story time, so let's go. So this all happened in 6th grade. It was about November, and there was a threat that someone was going to pew the school, if you know what I mean. So as I heard, me and my friends went to the office and reported it, and we were like, hey, I heard someone's gonna pew the school on Friday at like, I don't know, sometime. And I went home and I was like, Mom, someone's gonna pew the school. And she was like, it's fine, Keely, don't worry about it. And I was like, girl, I was worried. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to school. I was like, I don't want my friends going to school and they're gonna get pewed up, because like, hello? This was also like 2 years ago. And so I posted on Snapchat and I was like, guys, don't go to school on Friday. You're going to get pewed up and the school and everyone's going to die. I didn't say that, but I was just like, don't go to school on Friday at 12:30. Someone's going to show up at school. Good luck, y'all. I probably shouldn't have added that good luck part, because that, when I said good luck, it sounded like I was trying to pew up to school, but I was not trying to pew up to school. In no way was I was that my intentions. I was trying to protect and warn my friends that there was going to be at my school. Mind you, I was 11 years old. Like, I'm sorry, like, hello? And I have good grades. I'm not a bad student. Like, okay. So this was on a Wednesday, okay? And then that following day was a Thursday, and I was in first period, okay? And mind you, this lady, I've already had problems with her once. I got bullied at the beginning of the year, and she didn't take my side. Whatever. That's another short time. If y'all want to hear that, I can give that to y'all. But she came waddling into my first period, and she was like, Keely, get your stuff. You're coming with me. And I was like, who does this lady think she is? And mind you, we were allowed to be on our phones in that class. And my phone was, like, laying on the desk or whatever. And she said, is this yours? And I was like, yeah. And homegirl snatched my phone. She picked it up and she started walking with, I was like, whoa, slow down, hon. I was like, am I in trouble? Because I didn't know what was going on. I was 11, mind you, I was 11 years old. Okay. And then she took me into her office and she was like, Keely, what's your story about? And I was like, girl, what story? Because I deleted it because people were like, they might think that of something else. And I was like, okay, I'll just delete it. Anyways, but I was like, what story? I deleted all my stories. Like, there was nothing on there. And then I was like, oh, about the school shooting? She's like, yeah, tell me about that. So she made me write a statement and stuff. And I was just like, I was literally just trying to protect my friends. Okay, and I started crying because I don't get in trouble. Like, I don't. I just literally don't. And that was, like, the first time I ever got in trouble. And that was the beginning of 6th grade. Like, I was an innocent little girl. It was literally in October. So I started crying, and she was like, oh, well, it sounded like you made the threat. And I was like, girl. Okay. So, after that, I was in her office for about an hour, and she was like, well, you can write a statement, and then we're going to read it over, and we can see if we can get your mom involved or the cops. And I was like, well, the cops? Hold on, pause. We don't need to get the cops involved. I was trying to protect my friends. Why are we getting the cops involved? Why are we getting the cops involved? And she was like, come, girl. Take a seat. So I was there till, like, I think it was, like, 10. 10, yeah. I was in there from, like, 8 to 10. Just sitting there. And they moved me to this other room with the door open. Or no, first the door was closed. And I just, like, heard people walking by. And then I heard my mom's voice. And then I got so scared. I was shivering in my boots. I started crying even more. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Because no one was telling me nothing. And then I see a cop. I was like, what? And then I see my mom. I was like, bro, what is going on? I was like, I didn't do nothing. Like, I've done 0 things. And the cops were like, come with me, Keely. And I was like, what did I do? Like, so I walked my big butt over there with them, and I was walking with my mom and the cops, and there was a cop and a detective, okay? And first of all, I didn't even know who this cop was. Anyways, I didn't know who this cop was, so that made me feel more nervous. And then the freaking detective, like, what? Okay, and it was the detective and my mom. And me and my mom were walking, and I was like, the whole time I was crying. I was like, blowing my eyes. I was like, Mom, I didn't do anything. I didn't do nothing. I promise. Like, I didn't do anything. And then they got me to the cop car, and they're like, Keely, you're getting arrested for terroristic threat. What? Terroristic threat? When did I make a threat, honey? Okay, anyways, but they put me in the back of the cop car, and they're like, we're gonna handcuff you, but loosely. And I was like, handcuff me? What am I gonna do? Run away? Actually, hold on. Okay, but like still, and they handcuffed me, and I was like this. I was just sitting in the back of the cop car, and it was like a kind of long drive. Well, it actually wasn't, but it felt like a long drive. And I just I was bawling my eyes out. It was traumatizing. Like, I'm laughing about it right now, but if I could give a deeper detail, I'd be crying right now. Anyways, so they got me to the police station, and they had some lady. I don't know who she was. I mean, she was low-key nice, but I don't know who she was. I think she was like a juvenile detention officer or something like that. But they started asking me all these questions and stuff, and they were like, well, we can either send you home tonight, or we could take you to juvie. And I was like, girl, what? And they were like, take you to juvie for the night. And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to juvie. So they took my fingerprints. Oh, I forgot to mention that. They had me do, like, fingerprints on all my fingers. So I don't know. Anyways, so after that day, we were there for, like, until, like, 4 into the afternoon. It was so traumatizing. I was crying for literally, like, a whole day. It was so bad. But then I had a 3-day suspension and LDMC. I wasn't too worried about the 3-day suspension, but we went to talk to the same lady that got me arrested, which I don't know why we just didn't go to the principal, because it wasn't even the principal, it was the assistant principal. Okay, and we talked to her 3 different times, explained my story, explained what I was thinking, like, explained all my feelings, and she was like, no, you're going to LDMC, I don't care. Which, LDMC is our, like, detention, like if you get caught vaping or something, you go there or something like that. Or if you like make a kid bleed in a fight or something, or if you bring like a weapon to school, you go there. It's like the alternative school. And they sent me there for 30 days. And most kids, when they go, they get halftime. I didn't get halftime. They thought I was a criminal. I didn't do anything. But they thought I was a whole criminal and stuff. And so we talked to that lady 3 different times. Okay, 3 times. 3. And they were like, okay, no. She wasn't giving me any grace. She was like, you're saying LDMC, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry. Oh. So we went to talk to the principal, the actual principal, like the person that runs the school. Okay, guess what she did? She took me out of LDMC because she was like, girl, you didn't even do anything. Like, I literally did nothing. She was like, girl, you didn't do anything. You can get out of there. I'll get you out. You can go to school tomorrow. So the next day I was in school. Okay, and then this is where the story gets good. So after I was in school, I still had my charges and everything. Like, I got charged with terroristic threat or whatever, and that was still on my record. So in my brain, I wasn't going to college. No, college was bye-bye down the drain. Right. But about a few days later, they called us to the juvenile detention center, and I explained my story. I explained my side, and they were like, yeah. And they took my, like, thing to court, and they got it back, and they were like, okay, you didn't do anything. This was all unnecessary, and all your charges are dropped. So they put me through all of that trauma for 0 reason. So I had went through all of that, and I still had the trauma and all this stuff. It was for what? Just for me to get my charges dropped? So yeah, that's my story time on the last video. I can make so many other story times on 6th grade year because it was really the worst year of my life. And that's literally the reason why I've moved towns and everything. So if y'all want more story times, just tell me that and I will give them to y'all. So that's it. Bye.
How old do you think I am? Tell me right now before I tell you my age. How old do you think I am? Because tonight, I went out with friends, and then at the end of the night, some guy started talking to me about my shirt because I guess it's a conversation starter or something. And then he said, "You're really cute. Can I have your number?" But my man had a beard, and I understand that young people can have beards. But he was not young. So I asked him, I said, "Oh, like, can I ask how old you are?" And he said, 28. 28? How old did you think I am? So I said, I was like, "Oh, I'm 18 years old." So he said, "Oh, never mind then. How old did you think I was?" Because I think I could not pass for any older than 20. And I feel like that's also kind of a lot. I understand that with the makeup and everything, I look a little bit older, but I've always been told that I look younger than I am. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like for a 28-year-old to be appropriate for him to date me, I would have to be at least 22. At least 22. And I don't think I can pass for 22. So, I need to know if I just look really old. But I don't know, man. How old do I look?
Story time of how my address was put on the dark web. You heard that correctly, the dark web. So I had this friend group in high school, and 2 of them had just started dating. There was 4 girls, I think, 4, yeah, and then 2 boys. And one of the girls was my best friend, and one of the boys was just a boy. It was really weird. He used to say like horrible stuff. It got to a point in high school later on when he said it's okay to rape women. So yeah, he's not a good guy. Anyway, so moving on from that, I know that's a statement, but we're moving on back to what we were talking about. So they got together, right? And me and her have an argument. Now, we used to petty argue all the time. The longest argument that we've ever had lasted about a week. This one lasted a couple of hours. Tell me why I get a phone call from Sam. I'm name dropping because fuck you. Okay, I get a call from Sam, and he's like, "Hello," and he starts asking me why we've fallen out, and I'm like, it was over something stupid. We're fine now, you know what I mean? We're fine. And he was like, "Well, I'll put your address on the dark web because I love her so much." And I was like, what? 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 And he was like, "Well, she told me to." I was like, "She told you to?" I repeated it back to him, and he said, "Well, no, but she knows. So she didn't tell you to do shit." And I doubt she knows, because I spoke to her about it, actually. She had no idea. She had no idea. And I literally spoke to her about it last night because it came up in my head. I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, I swear to you, I had no idea. And I was like, I didn't think you did anyway. So anyway, he put my address on the dark web and I was like, brilliant. I told him to remove it. He was like, well, I can't just remove it. For someone who thinks he's a hacker, tech fucking diva, you're not. What do you mean you can't remove it from the dark web? You wet wipe, delete the post, remove the thread. And then my house gets broken into. My house got broken into a couple months after that. I don't know if it's linked because I never told my parents that you put my address on the dark web. But we haven't really, where we live, you don't get that kind of stuff. There was one other break-in and that was our neighbours, like the people we lived next to, and it was years and years and years ago, and that is the only one that I can actually remember. And then the difference was the guy that came to our house was dressed in fully black, including a balaclava, okay? He was ready. Luckily there was someone in the house, they punched him and they ran away. They got a bit scared, they got spooked. At first we thought it was obviously the roadmen around our, but they were way too like big, tall, you know what I mean? It actually freaks me out. Like, what if my address is still on there? Is my address still on there, Sam? If it is, you better remove it. You better remove it. Yeah. Anyway, I love you. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Story time, how I got my first ever detention. This happened when I was in year 7, which is now 2 or 3 years ago. And we were on a residential school trip. And this was in the last week of term and I'd gone the whole year without having a detention. One night it was dinner time and I had already ate my food, and I remember this other group of girls that I didn't really speak to were also sitting on my table. So I got up and I put my plate away, and then this other group of girls was still at my table. So when I left the table it was all clean and tidy. But I think there must have been a mess on my table because I had this meal card thing that was vegetarian, even though I'm not vegetarian, and I think I must have dropped it or something, because after I'd gone back to my dorm to get ready for bed and stuff, I was in my friend's dorm and people were coming up to me saying, oh Isha, the teachers are looking for you. I was like, what? So obviously I was really confused because I hadn't done anything. So the teacher found me and she took me into a room and she was like, oh, do you know what you've done? And I was like, no. And then she was like, who was sitting with you at dinner? And I was like, oh, just me and my friends. And she already had some of them in the room. And once everyone had been gathered, we got taken into the main common room bit. And she sat us down and was like, oh, do you girls know what you've done? And we were just really confused as to what was going on because we literally had no clue. And then she explained to us how there was a big mess at the dinner table that we were sat at. And then we were really confused as to how does she know it was our table? Then the meal card with my name on it was whipped out. She said that she found it on the floor where the messy table was. Obviously we apologised, but we were still really confused because we didn't leave a mess. So I don't know where that mess came from, but it was there and my name was there. So apparently it was all my fault, but that isn't the reason I got detention. The teacher then proceeded to say that tomorrow, the next day for breakfast, our little group would be the last people to eat breakfast. So we were like, okay, fair enough, I guess. At least we're not getting detention or having to clean up some random mess. It's breakfast of the next day and the group of girls and me were all sitting at a table, and this one teacher comes up to our table and says, oh, if you're getting cold food or cereal, you can go and get your food now. So me and my friend wanted cereal, Cocoa Pops, that's what we wanted. So us two, we went up to little cereal bar and got our cereal and sat back down, but no one else wanted cereal because they wanted the hot English breakfast food. So then the teacher that was speaking to us last night, which was a different teacher, came over to our table and said, girls, you're allowed to get your food now. So we were all okay, but me and my friend already had our cereal. Once all the other girls got up, she saw that me and my friend already had Cocoa Pops. And she was like, oh, girls, why don't you listen to me? Why have you already got your food? And we were trying to explain, but she was like, fine, I'll just speak to you after. So after breakfast, she took us out the line and spoke to us. And then she was like, why have you got Cocoa Pops when I told you you'd be last to eat breakfast? And then me and my friend were like, because the other teacher told us we could get our cold food. She was like, oh, who was this teacher? And me and my friend were in year 7 and we really did not know the teacher's names that well. So we just said, oh, sorry, we don't know his name.
And she was like, oh, well, I don't believe you or something. And then she was like, detention for both of you? I was like, what? Bro, you've given me detention for eating Cocoa Pops at the wrong time, even though it was literally breakfast time and someone told me I could get them. And then my actual detention was on the second last day of school on Thursday, I remember. And it was at lunchtime, so it wasn't even a proper detention. So yeah, that's how I got my first ever and only ever detention. Bye, guys.